Poland mobilizes air defense amid Russian attacks on Ukraine. December 27, 2025. That headline is hitting fast, and it really feels like it's threatening to pull Europe's eastern flank into a much deeper conflict. This is a dangerous new escalation. Subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. I'm Alex. Join me with Aria in the latest podcast by Defense Report for a sharp, no-nonsense breakdowns of the latest in global defense news, military technology, and strategic developments. And today we're going to cover the immediate crisis on the eastern border. And this isn't just about one military scramble. We're going to dive deep into this escalating pattern of Russian incursions into NATO airspace, looked at the really sophisticated testing tactics being used, and what it all means for the security of Ukraine's neighbors.
It's an absolutely critical moment for this deep dive. These events, they aren't random. They're not just spillover from the war. These are tactical, psychological moves. They're designed to probe NATO's response systems, to exhaust their resources, and really test the political resolve of these nations, especially Poland, which is, providing Ukraine with these essential lifelines.
Okay, let's unpack this then, starting with the breaking news from today, December 27th. What actually happened on the ground as a result of these Russian strikes near the border?
Well, the Polish armed forces, specifically their air defense command, they scrambled fighter jets.
Right.
And this is a direct response to a massive wave of Russian missile and drone strikes that were targeting Ukraine's western regions. And critically, this forced the temporary closure of two key airports in southeastern Poland.
Which ones?
Ryzhov and Lublin Airport.
And that closure, they said it was for military aviation operations, which... That's not just standard protocol, is it? It sounds like an immediate crisis posture.
It is, absolutely.
Why is shutting down Ryzhov specifically so significant here?
Because Ryzhov is, it's arguably the most vital logistics hub for all Western military and humanitarian aid going into Ukraine.
The main pipeline.
Exactly. Billions of dollars worth of equipment has flowed through that one airport. So when you have to shut it down because of military mobilization, it's not just an inconvenience. It shows the conflict is operating right on the doorstep of the NATO supply line.
It's a chilling signal.
A very chilling signal about just how close that Russian targeting is getting.
And today's incident was really just the climax of a whole series of provocations over the holidays. It feels less like stray incidents and more like a coordinated test.
It was a classic hybrid stress test, and it was all executed in a very short period of time. You have to look at the timeline just before today's scramble.
Okay.
Just 2 days ago, Christmas Day, Polish fighters were already up in the air, intercepting and visually identifying a Russian reconnaissance aircraft over the Baltic.
So you have this high-end air probe happening in the north. What was going on at the same time on the ground?
And this is where the hybrid strategy gets really clear. At the very same time, you had dozens of these unexplained low-altitude objects entering Polish airspace, but from Belarus.
Where were they?
Polish authorities said they were likely smuggling balloons, maybe carrying contraband. But, and this is key, they didn't just dismiss it as a criminal act. They specifically called it a deliberate provocation disguised as a smuggling operation.
So they're using cheap, non-military stuff to tie up border guards and air defense, forcing them to waste resources on these low-level distractions.
Exactly. You have sophisticated recon testing air defenses up north. You have low-tech chaos testing the border from Belarus. And then today, the direct threat of kinetic strikes forcing military operations in the south. It just confirms this persistent, calculated strategy to pressure the entire eastern border of NATO.
And it seems like Poland has been seeing this coming. I mean, you can see it in their recent defensive deployments.
Oh, yes. In response to exactly this kind of threat, just before Christmas, on December 23rd, Poland rolled out the first phase of its anti-drone defenses on the Belarus border. They put up radar towers near Krinky. Some analysts are calling this a response to what Russia calls Phase Zero, the informational and psychological stuff that comes before a major conflict.
The situation has gotten so intense, it's actually changing travel advice for regular people.
Yeah.
I saw the UK's updated FCDO advisory.
That advisory, updated on the 24th, was pretty stark. It urged travelers to avoid any non-essential trips within 20 kilometers of the Ukrainian and Belarusian borders. And more than that, it advised carrying ID at all times, be prepared for spot checks. It just confirms this whole area is now on a sustained, high-level alert.
This level of readiness didn't just materialize overnight, though. To really understand the current response, we have to look back a few months to September of 2025. That was a much bigger test for NATO's air defenses.
Oh, the September 9th and 10th incident was absolutely pivotal. It shaped everything we're seeing now. Multiple sources confirmed that over that night, somewhere between 19 and 23 unarmed drones launched from Russia during an attack on Ukraine deliberately entered Polish airspace.
Unarmed, but they flew deep into the country.
Deep into the country. It was a clear violation, and it immediately triggered an unprecedented quick reaction alert across the entire alliance.
So how does a drone swarm like that, even unarmed, test NATO in a way that, say, a single reconnaissance plane doesn't?
It's a saturation attack. It's designed to overwhelm the system. And the technical challenge is significant. You're talking about high-performance NATO jets, planes built to fight other jets at Mach 2, suddenly having to intercept these slow, small, propeller-driven targets, usually at night.
That's a completely different mission set.
A very complex and different mission.
And who was it that led the response that night?
The response was just a stunning display of NATO integration. The Polish Air Force scrambled, of course, but it was the Dutch Air Force F-35s that were deployed and actually shot down most of the confirmed targets.
The Dutch.
Yes, up to 4 drones in total. It was a real-time validation of NATO's whole rotational deployment strategy. It worked.
And even if they're unarmed, these things still pose a kinetic risk, which tragically we saw happen.
They absolutely do. Falling debris is dangerous. And in this case, a house was damaged by shrapnel from one of the intercepted drones. And that single piece of damage instantly turns a theoretical airspace violation into a tangible crisis for Polish citizens.
Right.
Which is why Poland's Prime Minister, Donald Tusk, he didn't hesitate. He immediately called it an act of aggression and a direct threat.
And the diplomatic response was just as serious. Poland invoked Article 4 of the North Atlantic Treaty. For the bigger picture, what does invoking Article 4 actually trigger?
Invoking Article 4 isn't a declaration of war. It's the critical step a member state takes when it feels its security is so threatened that it needs urgent consultations with the rest of the alliance. It basically forces everyone to drop what they're doing and collectively assess the threat. And after the September incident, it didn't just end with a statement. It directly led to NATO launching Operation Eastern Sentry.
Operation Eastern Sentry. That sounds like a pretty sustained, long-term commitment.
It is. The operation formalized a sustained, elevated state of readiness on the eastern flank. Continuous air patrols, shared intel, rotational deployments. It moved NATO from being purely reactive to having a permanently bolstered defense.
Okay, so if Operation Eastern Sentry set the stage for immediate military interception, what's been the long-term strategic response? I mean, beyond just scrambling jets, how are they reinforcing the flank?
The response has been monumental. It's a combination of huge Allied contributions and Poland's own massive focused military modernization. The commitment to collective defense is translating into real hardware on the ground.
So what are some of those Allied contributions that are physically changing the landscape in Poland right now?
Well, the Netherlands, after the success of their F-35s, they pledged and have now deployed ground-based Patriot missile defense systems to Poland. They started arriving this December.
The gold standard for air defense.
Exactly. And then France deployed 3 of its advanced Rafale fighters for patrols. We also saw the Czech Republic send a specialized anti-drone helicopter unit designed for those low-level threats we talked about.
And the commitment went beyond just the immediate neighbors, right? I heard about Northern Europe as well.
Absolutely. Sweden, even before it was officially in the alliance, pledged to send air defenses and aircraft. And the UK tasked its military to look at options, considering sending up to 6 of their Typhoon fighters. It's a unified multinational firewall being built in real time.
Allied support is one thing, but a country's own defense muscle is what really matters. So tell us about Poland's own spending. What are they prioritizing?
Poland is investing heavily, and they're prioritizing high-end air assets that can do both defense and long-range strike. The centerpiece is the acquisition of 32 F-35A Lightning II fighters.
And not just any F-35.
No, specifically the advanced Block 4 configuration.
Why is that Block 4 detail so important for people to understand?
Because Block 4 means these jets are all about advanced data fusion. They act less like traditional fighters and more like flying, networked command centers. They give Polish pilots incredible situational awareness and full integration with all NATO systems. They're future-proofing their Air Force.
And beyond the F-35, what else are they buying that signals a big strategic shift?
They're also doing a massive midlife upgrade on their 48 F-16s, bringing them close to the latest Block 772 standard, so their existing fleet stays relevant. But the really fascinating part is the munitions, the teeth of the Air Force.
What kind of munitions are we talking about?
They're getting a whole array of long-range air-launched weapons, things like the AGM-158 JSSM-ER cruise missile. That gives them a huge standoff strike capability. They've also got AIM-120C AIM-rams for air-to-air superiority. But connecting it to the bigger picture, the most strategic buy is the AGM-88G ARGMER.
ARGMER, that's a mouthful. What capability does that give them?
It's an anti-radiation guided missile, extended range. This is a huge capability shift. It's for seed suppression of enemy air defenses.
So hunting enemy radar.
Exactly. These missiles are specifically designed to seek out and destroy enemy air defense systems from long distances. By buying these, Poland isn't just signaling defense, they're signaling an ability to neutralize threats deep inside enemy territory, a crucial deterrent.
That's a massive investment in both hardening their defense and creating an offensive reach. But you mentioned there's a critical catch to actually using those long-range missiles.
Yes. This is the key insight into modern warfare. To actually use those JSSM-ER cruise missiles effectively, Poland cannot rely solely on its allies for targeting data.
They need their own eyes.
They critically need independent Polish satellite reconnaissance. Because if all your targeting data comes from another country, your ability to strike is ultimately dependent on their political willingness to share that data in a crisis.
The multi-million-dollar missile is basically useless without the independent satellite to guide it.
Precisely. And that's why Poland is actively pursuing projects to get its own military satellite constellation up and running. The link between the long-range missile and the independent satellite. That is the true measure of military independence on the eastern flank today.
And before we move on to the economic side of this, we can't ignore the profound historical symbolism of this whole NATO reinforcement effort.
It is a remarkable moment. The sources we've looked at highlight this unique and symbolic reversal of history. You have Germany constructing defenses in Poland and deploying troops to Lithuania to defend Lithuanian sovereignty from the east.
I mean, given the horrific history of the 20th century, German occupation, the suffering.
It creates this powerful, undeniable symbol of European unity. To see former adversaries like Germany and Poland standing together with German troops on the border to defend a neighbor like Lithuania, which suffered so terribly under both occupations, it's a foundational statement. It shows the new Europe is moving past that history to unify against a shared, immediate threat.
That historical context just adds so much depth to what could sound like just technical defense planning. But this military buildup, it only addresses the kinetic threat. As we said at the start, this is a hybrid conflict. So let's pivot. Okay, let's unpack this. How is Europe preparing the non-military side of the house? How's the economy being fortified?
This shift to economic resilience is being treated with real urgency. The geopolitical instability, especially from the war in Ukraine, has really highlighted a widespread lack of preparedness among small and medium-sized enterprises, or SMEs.
Why the focus on SMEs? They aren't exactly defense contractors.
Yeah. Because SMEs are the absolute backbone of the European economy. They account for most of the jobs and a huge portion of the supply chain in critical sectors: health, energy, food. If that supply chain breaks, the entire national defense plan starts to falter. So for these border nations, national defense now demands a whole-of-society approach.
So what tangible things is the EU recommending to bolster this non-military front?
Well, the EU Preparedness Union Strategy from March 2025 calls for exactly that. It requires member states to do mandatory risk mapping and crisis planning, and it specifically recognizes SMEs as key actors in resilience. The goal is something they call preparedness by design.
That sounds a little bureaucratic. Are there any practical, real-world examples of this being done well?
Actually, Poland provides a major best practice here with digital resilience. Their business.gov.pl platform is a centralized digital hub designed to support entrepreneurs through a crisis. It offers streamlined guidance, legal instructions, and quick access to government support. It was vital during the energy crisis, for instance.
That digital hub sounds incredibly efficient for getting help out quickly.
It is. It's a modern necessity. But, and this is a crucial lesson learned from countries like Finland and Sweden, digital tools are not infallible.
The digital communication gap, you mean, if the power grid or the internet goes down.
Exactly. Imagine a full-spectrum cyber attack or widespread power outages from kinetic strikes near the border. That brilliant digital hub could go dark right when people need it most. This really emphasizes the need for redundant, low-tech communication channels.
And what's the low-tech solution?
Both Finland and Sweden have this best practice of proactively mailing comprehensive physical preparedness guides to every single household and business.
Paper guides.
Physical paper guides with critical non-digital info, what to do in an air raid, where to find emergency rations, how to tune into emergency radio frequencies. It's a deliberately low-tech solution for a high-tech threat.
That realization that real defense needs paper fallback plans just as much as it needs F-35s and Patriots, that really connects everything we've been talking about.
It means every SME, every citizen, every piece of infrastructure is now a component of national defense.
So when we put it all together, what does this deep dive really tell us?
That the military events on the Polish border today aren't anomalies. They are definitive proof of a persistent, calculating strategy to probe and pressure NATO. And the European response confirms that military readiness, the F-35s, the sea-aid capability and deep-seated economic resilience, the SME preparedness, the supply chains, they are now inseparable aspects of defense. The whole continent is unifying against this constant pressure.
And this raises an important question for you, our listener. The source material mentions Putin's recent declaration that he is ready for war with the continent, alongside Russia's clear strategic goal to seize all of Ukraine. So how do we maintain that unified focus and readiness when the threat shifts constantly between a high-tech violation like a drone swarm and economic sabotage like those smuggling balloons? That challenge matching long-term ambition with a flexible, immediate, and holistic response, that really is the defining security task for Europe today.
A profound thought to end on. It's a reminder that this requires vigilance and investment from everyone, not just people in uniform.
You've been listening to Defense Report by Alex and Aria, where we analyze the latest in military strategy, global defense, and advanced weaponry. Subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. We'll catch you next time.